G'day friends and fans. Welcome to Dave Talk Stuff, your reliable source of social and political commentary from inside the manosphere. Today I bring you a comprehensive update on the Ukraine war for the 13th of May 2026. Now in this video we're going to discuss topics that are not pleasant and are contrary to the political narratives of the day. Ukraine has been humiliated not once but twice today. First, with failure of air defences at, let me just check, which, Dnipro. Almost all Russian drones got through in Dnipro, and a humiliation on the front line where Ukraine is now forced into retreat into Nikopol, and civilians have been ordered to evacuate. Now the Russian army is a day away from Nikopol, and it's actually not that surprising considering they've been sitting on the other side of the river for some time now. Again, third failure today, third humiliation. Another attempted attack on the Kursk bridge has been stopped by the Russians. Wow, bad news does come in threes. Over 200 drone strikes. Over 200 successful drone strikes today. Now this is a huge collapse of Ukrainian air defences, or huge lapse. They're coping and seething, of course. But a retreat at Nikopol, Nikopol, and a Kursk bridge. So, 3 distinct failures on the Ukraine map, the live map, which is run by Ukrainian volunteers. There it is, huge retreat. There it is, failure to attack the Kursk bridge. The downed drone did hit the oil terminal at the other side, but the Russians at least admit when they're hit. Ukraine does not. Ukraine says, we don't want to help the enemy. Well, Russia doesn't need your help. They're happy to let you lose without any help whatsoever. Zelensky thinks he's clever, sneaking someone into Russia to attack a luxury high-rise in Moscow. That's a war crime. That's attacks on civilians. But the left don't care. But they say Canada supports Ukraine, hoorah! And all the other cheering. And that's the problem, isn't it, with this world where truth is subjective, not an objective fact. Now, the objective fact is you have to hold that Ukraine is just a parasite who's reached into your pocket. After Russia was no longer able to support them, they turned to China. When China was no longer to support them, they turned to gullible Europe. And gullible Canada has fallen fallen for their hook, line and sinker, their political narratives, because we want to stand up to the aggressors in the world. You are the aggressors in the world. You start the wars, and then you demand others fight them, and then you won't fight them themselves. You protest against them. Alright, so we have a lot of activity without any reported success, but not every battle is going to win, and not every one battle means you advance. People keep... Now, yes, this war is longer than the campaign against the Germans. But remember, the Russians had a lot larger army. Technology was much simpler then. Civilians kept out of the way of most wars. Russia's mobilization was huge in World War II. It's nowhere near as big now. And they're not facing an enemy with supply issues. Ukraine does not have that big a supply issue. Now, if Ukraine was fighting on their own, like Germany was in World War II, Ukraine would have been finished long ago because they could not, right? It's the reason why Germany failed. They could not keep up with the ammunition. Nor could they protect their supply lines or their factories. Ukraine would be devastated without European interventionism. And remember when the left used to complain about interventionism? Yeah. It's not fascism. That's the problem in it. Left wing. The left do not consider anything fascist when they do it. Only when others do it. Now look, you can see the Russians have made some small advances in Kupiansk. Nothing really. Now here they've made nothing in quite some time. Again, I believe deliberate. I think they're actually deliberately leaving these towns on their border. Same here. I think they deliberately cut short and focusing on other areas. That this is nothing more than a bulwark in case, so that when the Ukrainians retreat here, when they come to counterattack, the Russians will have prepared positions. It's the same. They're seeking to cut off this road but it won't cut off all supplies to Lyman. Sorry, I said road, didn't I? I meant rail line. But again, there's not much effort. And I'm not saying that they don't put in a lot of effort, but I believe generally the push, the strategic goals are not going to be met if they take Lyman now. That the advantage in other areas gives them a higher priority over Lyman. Now, Lyman's good for drawing in the Ukrainian troops, though, because it's a big battle parade where they could have their throw a couple of dozen territorial guardsmen at it, take the survivor, parade him around as a recruitment tool, talk about how your heroes never die, give him a lavish party, and then send him to the front with the next batch of recruits under him, and then when they pick the survivor and do it all over again. They have, a military parade every week in Ukraine where they do this with about a dozen territorial guardsmen, and they put on a big hero, this great big hero medal, and they put a sergeant's stripe on him or whatever, and they send him out to the front. You never hear from him again. These heroes cost money. They're just tools to be exploited. Now, here we have at least some where the Russians have met some resistance. So, yeah, there is resistance in Ukraine, and it's pretty stiff resistance. But again, the Russians are not charging every day head first into battle and inflicting massive casualties through human wave tactics. They are actually carrying out small unit actions every day, engaged in rotation of troops, and many other modernisms that they didn't do in World War II. They are casualty adverse. And it's generally accepted. Both sides are inflicting about the same amount of casualties on each other, but it's generally accepted that more Ukrainians are dying than Russians. The problem is the left and the European establishment and the Canadian establishment just don't want to accept the truth because it's not politically convenient. It makes them look bad. This is the problem of liberalism. They always want to look good. Nothing wrong with wanting to be looking good, but you can't marry yourself to wars and expect to always coming out smelling like rosy. After all, Canada has often stood at the precipice and said, "Nah, we're going to protest this war," and then later talk about what a bunch of heroes they are. Yeah, you can't make this shit up. Now, Russians have taken a bit of territory up here. It looks like they're still trying to flank the Ukrainians here It's Bill Bilinishki? Yeah. I don't think they've made any progress here. They're just consolidating their positions. They seem to be settled in here, waiting for either a dual strike or opportunity, or simply just don't have the priority. There are rumours that when a front gets priority, they get extra ammunition, and the others only get enough to hold position. Now, the Ukrainians were humiliated here at Horishi a couple of times, but not today. No, the Russians are just holding their positions. Doesn't mean the commanders wouldn't take a push if they wanted to, but rumor has it the Russians are slowing down again. They are building their numbers and equipment again, and it would make sense. They're coming on for a troop rotation every 6 weeks, although it's not exactly 6 weeks, it's like 5.5, and the rotation takes about a week. So it's never even, although it's usually every odd month in the middle of the month there's a slowdown, and then they'll pick up again. But it's not guaranteed. They've done it in even months too. Again, and Putin said this in a speech, they avoid rhythmic patterns to keep the Ukrainians off guard. So that was an answer to a reporter, I think, last month or the month before, when asked about the state of the war. I don't watch every state of the war. I read the highlights. The state of the war is rather political, but they always tell you they've met their goals. Always cheerful, always optimistic, on both sides. Zelensky does the same. I think every world leader does the same. Iran's right now giving glowing reports how they sunk a US aircraft carrier. They still claim to have sunk a US aircraft carrier. No, sorry, they changed the headline to disabled. That's right. Yes. Even a disabled American aircraft carrier is still better than what half the world's navy is in condition. And don't forget, the Ukraine navy's on the bottom of the ocean too. Although most of it are small boats that wouldn't survive any conflict anyway. Maritime patrol vessels usually are the first to go. Most of the Ukraine Navy was actually sold off to PepsiCo as a debt settlement, and then most of those ships went to scrapyards, except for some which went to the Indonesian Navy. Now, I don't know why the headline said the majority went to Indonesia, because it did. Ukraine did retain about 500 boats, mostly territorial patrol craft, most of which were, some of them river boats, no less. And most of them were sunk in the first month of the Russian attack. But Ukraine, like most Soviet countries, just had a massive navy it couldn't sustain. And again, you're going to say, well, how do they have over 500 ships? Yeah, most of them are like the Iranian Navy, dinghies with a coverall and a machine gun on the front. Yeah. I forget the name of it, but technically they're like the US riverboat. The US Navy for a long time bragged but they don't count the riverboats anymore either. And a lot of them are now dry docked or dismantled. Now, there's various opinions on where the war is headed. I mean, again, I'm of the opinion that they are going to start cutting across here. But they might go after this road here. But again, they're not making any effort. I mean, they are making effort. But they're not making any push, I should say. Any putting in the troop numbers. Again, you've got 6 armies and they can only reinforce 2 at a time. And the Ukrainians work this out far faster than I can. The Ukrainians have all these planners, all these people watching the numbers, and realize that the Russians only maintain their position on most fronts and push on 2 to 3 at a time. But that's about it. 3 is pushing it, but right now they're pushing only on 2 fronts. And so there it is. When they pushed at Nikopol, for some reason they caught the Ukrainians off guard. And just like Kherson, there was a massive evacuation. But unlike Kherson, the Russians did not rush in. They're still holding their position. Yeah, but it appears they hold 2 of the crossings. Most of the Russians have had shelling, unreported for some reason, of Nikopol. I don't know why. But mandatory evacuations 19 hours ago. Various explosions, various drones. Kryvyi, again, they're not. Yeah. Again, air defenses caught off guard, but electronic warfare still was able to drop some of the drones. Remember, this channel is sponsored by you, the viewing audience, not any state actor. Isn't that right, Mr. Military Channel, who gets money from Ukraine as well as many others? I forget where the list is. You can look it up for yourself if you don't believe me. There's accusations running rampant about how many influencers funded by the Canadian government in Canada at the moment to support the Ukraine war. And Canadian government accused of funding influencers on behalf of Ukraine. Carney, of course, has bigger problems than just his dabbling in corruption and influence peddling. But us mere mortals have to work for a living, even when we're somewhat semi-retired. We still like to make a bit of income on the side to help stave off starvation. Empire of Elves, myshopify.com. That is Empire of Elves, myshopify.com. Fantasy themed, specifically to Empire of Elves, my book series covering the rise of Cade Hashimoto, the second Imperial Emperor of third Imperial Emperor of East Hyboria, grandson of the second Emperor, who is also the founder of the Pallades Star Empire. So, again, elves, long-lived, different psychology, exploring different themes, corruption, exploitation, wealth, and various, and of course, the nature of good and evil. From the perspective of a demonically possessed Cade. Speaking of demons, the world has a demon, a monkey on its shoulder, the nuclear missile. Putin has overseen the successful test of the new Sarmat nuclear missile. You've probably heard of this many times. The Satan II. Now, it will deploy by the end of the year now.
Ракета может двигаться не только по
Yeah, well, we don't need to hear about, successful launch. Yeah. Couple of guys sitting at a desk, told to press a button. They press it. Upstairs, Armageddon launches. But they got to smile because they knew they were launching a test missile. And knew that they'd get to go home at the end of the day. Even though the Russian military towns are not exactly friendly and welcoming to outsiders, but at least they get to go home. Now, the Sabbat comes from the Russian, pretty much for the Cemeterians, who are Iranians. I mean, real Iranians, not the Arab wannabes who occupy the country now. No, I'm not talking about the Persians. There's more than one ethnic group in the region, you know. Alright, so colloquially referred to as Satan II by the media outlets. This is a three-stage nuclear rocket, liquid fuel, carries FOBs. These are fractional orbit bombardment systems. Basically, it does not orbit, it goes up, it separates, stage 1, stage 2 takes it to its apogee, and then it launches the last stage that flies towards the target, and at that point it launches, uses its gain of momentum at its peak speed to launch re-entry vehicles. Now those re-entry vehicles, this one carries 16 of them, and they are hypersonic missiles. This is what they look like. They say glide missiles, but basically they're rocket-motored missiles that re-enter. Now they do have glide capability, but it ain't. That's an artist rendition. That's as close as we're going to get. We did not see the launch separation, but it's known as the avant-garde system. And there's the rocket on its. There's the weapon stage of the rocket going to its launch silo, where it's attached. Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge missile. Someone compensating for something? Yeah, likely. But for what Russia makes up in overcompensation, it does at least want independence for itself rather than some globalist system for now. And I think we should be encouraging Russian independence, but instead of being hostile to Russia. But no, people don't like the fact that Russia's successful, so they want to tear it down. Ukraine is crying because it didn't get its 90 billion in Russian assets. Ukraine is a parasite state. People don't want to believe it, but the European government decided that the Ukraine support loan would be raised by government funds, not by stealing from the Russians, and short-term relief for Ukraine at the cost of abandoning their four more ambitious game-changing goals, which was reparations for Ukraine, everyone. Yay, reparations! So that a bunch of greedy lawyers can carve up Russian estates and Russian property. And why taking Russian money would have been better? No, Ukraine dodged the bullet. Now, Ukraine doesn't care because the politicians, all their assets are in Europe, not in Ukraine. Whatever they had in Ukraine's blown to kingdom come by the Russians, or will be soon. And the Europeans keep rebuilding it for them because Europeans don't want to accept the fact, Maybe we should just take the L on this one. No, we can't. Liberalism will look bad. Well, yeah, liberalism already looks bad. You're a bunch of warmongers. You're worse than the neocons in Afghanistan or Pakistan or any other stain in the world, right? You're just as bad. You're just pretending your shit don't stink. Now, Trump has always said this. Every time there's hope, he gives them a boost and says, well, we're almost there, hoping that they'll latch onto it and and agree, but people won't. Europe won't accept it. Europe will double down on Trump arrangement and claim he's a Russian agent. And, well, the man accused of being a corrupt bureaucrat has once again walked out of court a free man. Now, he is only charged with money laundering. He is suspected of money laundering on a high-end construction project. Now, he's gone from political advisor to Zelensky and a business partner of Zelensky to an independent operator as a lawyer representing Ukrainian soldiers. Now, I am rather jaded with the world, rather black-pilled, and would look at this case and say, and ask the basic question, is Yermak under political pressure because he opposes Zelensky, tried to register as a presidential candidate, and he's been persecuted for the representations he made on the project on behalf of Zursk Enterprises, which is allegedly, according to the Russians and some Europeans, a front for Zelensky. But Austria says, no. Yeah, so it's a state enterprise. He's just the president. So there's a lot of cope going on, but he's not fled. He's a lawyer who plans to continue and saying he plans to visit the front line. Well, let's just hope he doesn't catch a stray bullet, because I think at the end of the day, notice of suspicion, it's going to blow over. The prosecution wanted him remanded. We all know what happens to people when they're remanded in the Ukrainian jail. They don't make it to court, and they're pronounced guilty at their funeral. A lot of them tortured to death by other prisoners, and according to some, at the request of the state, to basically say, you get rid of this problem for us, and we'll put meat in your weekly borscht. You know, they get a pot of borscht to last them a week. I mean, yeah. It's ridiculous. Ukraine is a pickle, because the more you look into Ukraine, the worse it gets. Now, Russia did wipe out electrical power in Povda. Again, the official maps don't show this. Again, this is why I say, Ukraine can't be trusted. Their own news services can't align with each other, cannot tell the truth, except when they're desperate, and they are desperate to get Trump to send them tomahawks and all the other niceties. Can we have some bunker busters? Can we have some drones? Can we have some switchblades? Can we have some M8s and M4s and M240s and all the other toys and the Marines go, no. Yeah, because you're putting... look what they've done with the M777s. Yeah, they can hold back the Russians for a while, but the whole idea is not to have the Ukrainians marching on Moscow, but apparently the Ukrainians believe that's exactly what they're going to do. And, yeah, they've been told to restrain, but Germany's drone deal has gone through, and they know that they're now facing a rather legal dilemma, although right now I don't see it going far. I don't know whether or not Russia will be able to bring a case against Europe. I know Iran has tried to sue America several times. I know Obama gave in to Iran's blackmail, but I don't think it's going to work this time. I don't think Trump is going to resume bombing either. I think Scott Bessent has found a plan. He says it's working. Many people agree. He says the Europeans are panicking, and hopefully by next week we'll see more ships escorted out of the Persian Gulf back to their home countries. And that's what Trump said. I'm not going to escort your ships home. You come and get them. And that's why they're pissed at Trump. No free rides. Just like Ukraine is pissed at America because America won't give them a free ride. Now, every time Ukraine makes a mistake, Russia's going to pounce on it. Russia's going to embarrass them on the world stage. And even if half the world is closing their ears and closing their eyes and screaming at the sky, it doesn't matter to Russia because people with long memories are going to, you're going to see this with many BRICS countries. I don't know when, but there is talks of sanctioning Ukraine. And that's going to hurt Ukraine hard. But for now, India is against it. So, obviously, because India sells Ukraine ammunition. Although increasingly that ammunition is coming from Europe. Now, it is powerful because it can carry more warheads and larger warheads able to hit separate targets independent. So the missile could launch from up here or down here and it can scatter over a wide area, but I don't know how wide, but apparently some say Mach 26 is very optimistic. Pardon me. But no future missile system allegedly can intercept them. Now, I'm not sure about that. I would say yes, current interception systems. But don't forget, Russia would have to develop its own countermeasures and would have to sit on those, hoping it would never need to use them, hoping the West will not develop, hoping the West will choose not to escalate. And it's true. Most of the time, the West has not chosen to escalate. A few notable times the West has, over time it has come out to be true, like escalation with the Minuteman missile, calling Russia's bluff then, embarrassed. Although it has backfired, Kennedy called Khrushchev's bluff, and then Khrushchev launched the Tsar bomber, and it turned out to be even bigger than the Russians claimed, which was a huge embarrassment to Kennedy. The W-42 program was Big Kitty Atoll and many others. America has, same with when China launched and tested missiles. But for now, America has tested launch systems and detonators, but not nuclear weapons, although they have refreshed some to make sure that they're still optimal and prime for their detonation potential. But they also have tested batches of... Now, Iron Dome for America would cost, I call it 1.2, but this is a cost over 20 years for operations and deployment. It will save probably 1 billion lives if it's potentially true that America can create a war on war. That basically anybody goes to war, they could just basically start shooting down the missiles from orbit and potentially aircraft, and stopping, basically any ground war would now be very risky operations. Most ground wars are risky operations. You look what happened in Russia when the Germans no longer had air superiority. Ground wars become... Now you might say, but Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam had vast... Yeah, Vietnam, 120,000 Americans, 2.3 million South Vietnamese, most of them deployed most of them never saw combat, against 3.6 rebels, and another 3 million NVA. Although technically the NVA never crossed the demarcation line. You all know they put on different uniforms and went south anyway. through Laos. So don't think a modern war can be compared. It's like, yeah, don't forget Napoleon swept through Europe with only 100,000 men and then got beaten by, by a handful of Tatars and 20,000 Cossacks. It's all about timing and placement. And again, that's why Russia's never breaking cover with large thrusts. They might get a large thrust through, take a town, but that's back in the. If you could look at World War II, they could tow a couple of anti-aircraft guns with them and defend against aircraft. Today, look at the amount of missiles and missile batteries you need. I mean, even in the Vietnam era, what was that? There was only 112 starfighters. You can imagine Ukraine's Air Force is around 327. Over 500 aircraft lost, but they've still got 300 more aircraft, most of which, of course, are, as you know, parked across Poland, Hungary, Ukraine, parts of Ukraine. They do move around, and yeah, most of their defences are pretty much focused on stopping missiles and drones getting past this line here. And yeah, I don't know if it's true or not. 327, probable. Russia wouldn't want to try and air combat over the territory, because remember, back in the day, if you flew high enough, you didn't have to worry about flak. Today, you don't worry about flak. You worry about the half a dozen missiles which are coming your way, whether you're high or low. So it doesn't matter. The state of the Ukraine war is showing that even that the days of large aircraft, large tank maneuvers, other than strategic bombing, there ain't going to be much going on unless you're a really powerful country which Russia is not there yet, and we don't know if they'll ever make it, but they have tried their hand at stealth. They have had occasional success. The thing is, US has already developed countermeasures which make it a one-way street. Now, China's tried to create countermeasures, and for now, they have failed miserably. Though they have moderate success against their own aircraft, everyone has success against Chinese aircraft, so the countermeasures stand. China's not able to develop a stealth that could stand up to US countermeasures. So Ukraine is in a pickle, being hot, and again, embarrassment will wash off them. I think they will just double down on the rhetoric. The gullible will believe them, and the Europeans will choose to believe them for now. But you can always remember, they made Saddam, they made the Ayatollah Khomeini, they made Colonel Gaddafi into a national hero. The Italians and French propped up Gaddafi for years, buying oil off Libya, and then the British turned against him on bequest of Hillary Clinton, who was bequested by Linda de Rothschild. So, always, if you're pretty unsure, trust me, there's always a they, them behind the scenes, but this time it's right in front of you. Zelensky and Keir Starmer, and front and centre, bosom buddies for life, as if they've always been in each other's pocket. It is unbelievable how they can stand there on the bullpit of politics, call you every name under the sun, telling you how they're fighting corruption, and then dump 90 billion on Ukraine in the middle of various corruption scandals and pretend none of them exist. So that's why so many people are black-pilled walking away, because they just can't trust the liberal establishment. And until you dismantle it, and put some of these people on trial, they're never going to learn. They're never going to learn. As long as you do nothing, they will keep exploiting you. So thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. In addition to empireofelves.myshopify.com, I also have books that I write. Empire of Elves on Amazon. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. Thank you for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.